Today we're taking these two beautiful colours and weaving them into some gorgeous snowflake towels. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Steph and welcome to another video. This design is the result of me trying to work out how to put snowflakes or stars into a colour and weave design, and I did work out how to do it. It probably didn't turn out to look exactly like snowflakes, but I'm pretty happy with how they turned out in the end. The design is very simple. It's simply 3 threads alternating in colours, into 2 colours, and this is repeated in the weft. So you can see here we've got slot, hole, slot in blue, and then hole, slot, hole in white, etc. repeated then in the weft. If you're not fond of the blue, then here are some other colour choices that you might want to consider also. So the cotton we are using today is 8/4 cotton from Maurice Brassard, and the colours that we're using are blue, which is a veau blue, and white. The length of the warp is 1.9 metres or 76 inches, which just happens to be the length of my dining table, and we'll be weaving 2 towels with a weaving length of 80 centimetres or 31.5 inches each. So here I'm just getting set up ready to warp. This is one of the reasons that I have curved scissors. It's so much easier just to get underneath those threads and snip off all of these little ends from the previous project. Then I'm just going to clamp down my loom to one end of my dining table. Then I'm attaching the heddle to the apron rod just to help with tension. Then I wind on just a little bit just to keep everything firmly in place. I'm starting with the blue and doing a little blue border of 2 pulls through, which is 4 threads. I always like to have a little border because it just makes the colours look a lot neater. The weaving width in the loom is 55 centimetres, which is just under 22 inches. Once I've got the border done, I'm onto the white. So the way I'm threading this is 2 pulls through of the blue as the border, and then 2 blue, 2 white, 2 blue, 2 white, etc. across the whole warp. So don't forget that 2 pulls through is actually 4 threads. Warping didn't take very long at all, and I just carried the yarn through without tying off the colours, which worked out fine. I must say that the reason I've chosen snowflakes is that I've never seen one, and it's a bit of a pipe dream here in Brisbane. It does snow in Australia, but only in the mountains in New South Wales and Victoria, and on the island of Tasmania. But it's always too hot here in Brisbane for snow and snowflakes, so one day I hope I will get to see snow. So here I'm just checking to make sure that I've warped up correctly, that I haven't missed any slots or doubled any, and I'm just making sure I've done all the right thing and the right warping sequence. So it looks good to me. So now I can unclamp my loom from the table and wind on just a little bit so I can pop my brown paper in, which is what I use for warp separator. Then I can wind on, and I'm going to wind on directly towards the pegs, which is my repurposed coat rack, which is something I get a lot of questions about. Winding on directly towards the pegs helps with tension, and it's just the simplest way to wind a warp on for something that's relatively short, which is for me under 2 meters. Before threading, I just like to tie up the warp in groups just with a simple loose overhand knot, and that just protects the warp in case I bump the loom or the dog bumps the loom and the heddle falls off and I lose my threading. For threading, I'm grabbing one group, just snipping off all of the loops on the ends, and then for the border it's just simply moving one thread from the hole to the slot on the right. Then things get a little bit different. So when I get to the threading for the snowflake pattern, here, if you look at it, you can see that there is a blue thread in the slot, then hole, then slot, and then a white thread in the hole, then slot, then hole. So if you squish it up, you can actually see the 3 threads together. The easiest way to think about threading is to concentrate on what it looks like when you separate the holes and the slots. If you just look at the holes, you can see that the holes are white, white, blue. Then if you just look at the slots, you can see the slots are blue, blue, white, blue, blue, white, so opposite. And that's just an easy way to think about threading. Try and keep your crossed threads at the back as close as you can. This doesn't interfere with the weaving at all until you get to those last few inches, but I'll show you a bit of a trick for helping there. After double checking to make sure that I've threaded it correctly, it's now time to tie on. So I've tied the threads in bundles of 8, and now with some scrap yarn that is around about 4 to 5 times the width of the loom, I wind up half into a yarn butterfly and then tie the other end onto the apron rod. I then separate the bundles, drop the scrap yarn straight through the top, around the bottom of the apron rod, and then continue across all of the bundles. I like to tighten up as I go as well. Once it's all tied on, before tying off the other end, just strum the warp at the back of the heddle and just see if you can pick up any slack areas that you might need to fix for tension. Once you're happy with tension, tie on the other end of the scrap yarn, then it's time to spread the warp. To spread the warp, I like to do 3 picks of scrap yarn without beating, and then beating those 3 picks down to a nice straight line at the bottom. Then repeat, do another 3 picks without beating, and then beat those 3 picks down to a nice straight line down the bottom, and that's usually all I need to do to spread my warp. After weaving for a little while, I cover my knots with the cardboard tube, and that's usually sufficient just to protect the weaving from those knots poking through. And then I add my measuring tape and just use a quilting clip to attach it to the weaving. Whilst weaving, I decided to make a bit of an executive decision that instead of just doing the 3 picks of blue and then 3 picks of white for the whole towel, every 10 centimeters I would increase the blue by 1 pick. And that should gradually give me larger and larger areas of blue while still keeping the 3 picks of white. And the reasoning behind this was I thought it might look like falling snowflakes. I'm not sure if I achieved that or not. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. As always, when I got to the end of the first towel, which was 80 centimeters or 31.5 inches, I put 2 picks of scrap yarn and then started weaving for the second set of towels. I started normally, and then after about 10 centimeters, I increased the blue section by 1 pick every blue section, because I thought that that would be a lot more dramatic than the first towel. And again, let me know what you think in the comments after you see the reveal. Instead of ending at every colour and tying off and tying back on again, I chose to carry both the blue and the white up the selvages, and just before I showed you how just to loop around that non-working yarn and loop it into the selvage. This is what it looks like, so I think it actually adds a little bit to the design as well, but I am very picky on what ones that I would do this for. If I had a bright yellow, it would really stick out just that little bit too much, but when you've got just 2 colours, I think it's fine to carry the colours up the selvage and not tie off. Okay, so now we're at that tricky last few inches of weaving, and you can see how messy the sheds are, especially because we have crossed some of those warp threads when we were threading, and that tends to make this section a lot harder. And you can see it's messy in the up shed and the down shed. So to fix this and to make those last few inches of weaving bearable, put the heddle in the up position. Then we're going to slide a pickup stick just behind the heddle, and that can be a little bit tricky. You might have to maneuver a few threads to get them where they're supposed to be. Then push that pickup stick towards the back of the loom as far as it will go, and that should be enough to clean up those sheds and just to keep all of your tension nice and tight and make those last few inches of weaving a lot easier. We are now at 80 centimeters or 31.5 inches for our last towel. So now I'm going to put in 4 picks of scrap yarn, and that helps to protect that edge of the weaving through the wet finishing process. Then I'm going to snip off small groups up by the back apron rod, and then tie an overhand knot up close to where my scrap yarn is, and that will secure the weaving through the wet finishing process and allow me to take it off the loom. To wet finish, I put the weaving straight into my washing machine on the delicate cycle with a little bit of dish soap just to remove any machine oils from the manufacturing of the yarn, then straight into the dryer because I want everything pre-shrunk and ready to sew. Straight from the dryer, I give the towels a really good iron, and as I'm ironing, I'm also going through and snipping off all of those little tails. I must say that I'm pretty sure I like the second towel better than the first. I think the falling snowflakes are a lot more defined, and I think they look quite pretty when they're hung up. They also look quite pretty if you just want to do the snowflakes by themselves and not do the increases also. So measurements after wet finishing, the width of the towel ended up being 46 centimeters, which is 18 inches, and we started with 55 centimeter weaving width. And the length, we started with 80 centimeters and it ended up being 71 centimeters, which is about 28 inches before hemming. To be able to cut these towels apart safely without everything unraveling, I'm just going to zigzag at the very beginning and at the end up close to my scrap yarn, and the same in the center. I'm going to zigzag either side of the scrap yarn, then I'll be able to safely cut the towels away without everything unraveling. I'm inserting these handmade with love tags in the hem, just one on each towel, and that will really help being able to hang the towels. And I just fold them in half like this and then pin the top. Then I can just slot them straight into the hem and straight stitch it all down together. To do the hem, it's just simply folding that zigzagged edge up twice, pinning in place, and then doing a straight stitch to secure that hem down. If you celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a wonderful time with your loved ones. If you don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a wonderful break with your family and with your loved ones. I certainly did. I was surrounded by family, and I was just so grateful to have such a wonderful family around me. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting me. It really means the absolute world to me and gives me so much more motivation to keep going and keep bringing you videos that provide value to your weaving journey. If you have gotten any value from this video, please click that like button. That will really help my channel. And if you feel comfortable, please subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.